Oh my goodness. First time in a while we turned this camera on. March 26th, 2026. I cannot believe it has now been 25 years since WCW World Championship Wrestling had its fateful end. March 26, 2001, the last Nitro. If you're a wrestling fan, you probably are well aware of this infamous episode. And I feel really old today, knowing that that was 25 years ago. I became a wrestling fan in 1985. It was the WWF that I was introduced to by my brother of all people. And I believe it was 1989. I had a high school chemistry lab partner who was also a wrestling fan who introduced me to AWA and NWA, as it was known back then, which was essentially WCW. I was living in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I believe NWA syndicated program aired a Saturday night at 1 a.m., some ridiculous time like that, but I was encouraged to set my VCR and start watching this program, and away we went. Living in Toronto, WCW, I'm trying to remember. They didn't, back before 84, Jim Crockett Promotions, as a separate standalone group, would collaborate with Maple Leaf Wrestling, which was its own territory at the time. And a lot of NWA wrestling champions would be in Toronto. The NWA World Champ was a traveling champion that went to all the territories. But that predates my interest in wrestling. In late 84, I think it was, WWF took over Maple Leaf Gardens and signed an exclusive deal so that no other wrestling company could wrestle at Maple Leaf Gardens. I was introduced to my first live show in 87 at Maple Leaf Gardens. It was WWF. And WCW, I believe, ran the exhibition, the Canadian National Exhibition Theatre. I can't remember the name of the building. It's called the Ricoh Coliseum now. But back then it was just a small horse stable. 1990, 2 shows. I didn't get to go to them. They drew barely 500, 600 people. It wasn't until 93 we got our first real taste of the new WCW. And they came to the Sky Dome in the Sky Tent, which was basically one half of the Sky Dome. They put a big wall right down the middle because they didn't want to have the whole venue open. Interesting concept. I think they drew 4,000 or 5,000. This was before Hulk Hogan got into WCW. So there's a lot of good wrestling going on. If you go and look at the 1993 Toronto show, I think I did a video on it before. But it's an unbelievable list of talent. A lot of superstar wrestlers and a lot of young wrestlers who would go on to have big careers later on. And then they wouldn't come back to Toronto till 1999. Of course, the infamous Nitro at the Air Canada Centre in March, where Bret Hart and Bill Goldberg had a little confrontation. And Bret Hart was wearing a metal plate, so when Goldberg speared him, it was Goldberg that got injured. And the main event of that show was Hulk Hogan against Dallas Page, with Ric Flair at ringside being a pest. And then later in 99, they invented Mayhem, a pay-per-view that featured a tournament to crown a new world champion. And I was there for that as well. And Bret Hart won his first WCW World Heavyweight Championship that night. And of course, WCW went down the toilet and was out of business a year and a half later. But I can remember like it was yesterday, the shock of hearing the news. There were dirt sheets, I guess, but no, the internet was there. It wasn't a complete surprise. Like we kind of knew this was the last Nitro, and we had already known that Vince was buying it. And then you watch the actual final show. It's a Night of Champions. It's a tribute. They bring back Sting and Ric Flair. But then they ruined it by having Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon do that silly little stunt. But yeah, what a great experience watching. I spend a lot of time watching old classic wrestling. I don't pay much attention to the current product. And I guess my favorite time I always go back to 80s wrestling. Some of those early 1990 WCW stuff, like between 91 and 94, there's a lot of really cool matches that didn't get a lot of attention. Yeah. So, interestingly, the WCW Vault on YouTube, which is actually WWE run, has offered up for free on YouTube the Rise and Fall of WCW, the infamous 2008 DVD that did such a great job pulling back the curtain. For the first time, we're actually hearing from the wrestlers as themselves talking about what really happened. So check it out if you haven't seen it. And y'all have a great day. Thanks for watching my crazy videos.